Hey everyone, so you know how everyone's always talking about intuition? Well, today we're doing a deep dive into it. We'll be looking at understanding intuition, self-awareness, how intuition is not a warning system, which might kind of flip the way you think about it on its head. You see, I always thought intuition was like this alarm system that goes off inside you when you're about to say make a mistake or something. Think about how and when you usually think of intuition. For me personally, it's usually when I face a big life decisions. That's when I try to do everything I can to connect to my intuitions desperately, hoping for a clear sign to tell me which one is the right choice. But the truth is, intuition doesn't work that way. What you're about to find out is that intuition is not about predicting the future. Most of us believe that intuitions exist to protect us from making mistakes. When faced with uncertainty, we wait for a sign to confirm what's right or what's wrong. We then get stuck waiting for our intuitions to just hand us the right answer. I myself can totally relate to that. A few years ago, I was at the crossroads of my career choice. I was unhappy with my career at the time. I had spent 8 years in mechanical engineering, but deep down I felt called towards something else. I was frustrated with the working environment. I was blaming people for their lack of effort. I later looked back and realized that it was mostly me projecting my own discontent onto others. I was frustrated with my own personal growth, as I felt like I had learned everything I needed to learn for this job, for this career path. What I was called towards was a new career path in software engineering. Now, to be clear, it might sound like a sudden and random decision, but that wasn't how it played out. It's a long story, but
We're going to save it for another day.
so that we can focus on the topic that we want to talk about in this video. So as I was saying, software engineering was what I wanted to do next, but every time I thought about making the leap, I froze, as these questions kept playing in my head on repeat. What if I regret this? What if I fail? What if that little voice is indeed my intuition wanting me not to do this? In my case, I did hear the little voice, but they sometimes contradicted each other. So I kept waiting for a clear yes or no for my intuition to tell me what to do. And that's when I realized I was using intuition the wrong way. You see, most of us are taught that intuition is like this divine whisper, a mystical force separated from ourselves that somehow randomly provides insight. But here's the problem. This fear-based approach limits intuition's true powers and keeps us stuck, waiting for a sign to make decisions. The truth is, intuition is not your magic 8-ball. It's not a warning system designed to save us from something bad,
Because this view reduces intuition to fear-based mechanisms.
rather than recognizing it as a tool for self-knowledge, clarity, and conscious decision-making. When we believe intuition is a warning system, we tend to wait for certainty instead of taking action. We confuse fear with intuition,
We assume discomfort means bad idea
instead of thinking of it as a growth agent, pushing us out of our comfort zone. In my case, I wasn't stuck because my intuition was warning me. I was stuck because I was afraid of uncertainty when listening to that little voice coming from my own fear. So what we have been talking about since the beginning of this video is the role that intuition plays in our decision making. That most of us was taught to think of intuition as a decision making tool that is somehow supposed to steer us from bad choice and help us make the good one. Now, what if I tell you that there's no such thing as right or wrong choice? That sounds wrong, I know, but hear me out. According to the Buddhist teaching, there's no such thing as wrong or right choice. There's only the motivation that you bring to the decisions that you made. So let's break it down. Western thought often frames moralities in terms of absolute right and wrong, but Buddhism approaches ethics differently. Instead of labeling action as inherently good or bad, it's emphasized the motivations behind action. This means that the same action could have different karmic consequences depending on the intent behind it. For example, giving money to someone in need might seem right, but if done with the intent of gaining praise or manipulating the recipient, it creates a negative karma. Similarly, saying something harsh might seem wrong, but if it's done out of compassion to wake someone up from self-destruction, it could be beneficial. So therefore, from the Buddhist perspective, morality isn't about external rules, but about inner awareness
of one's motives.
So there is no such thing as right or wrong choices in a cosmic sense. Instead, every choice we make leads to consequences. This teaching reflects a fundamental perspective in Buddhism about ethics, intentions, and karma. We are responsible for those consequences, whether they bring growth or challenges. However, compassion and guidance are always available to help us learn from these experiences. This is where intuition comes in. Now, if this confuses you, bear with me as we're going to break it down to make it easier for you to understand. So compassion and guidance are provided for us to help deal with the consequences of the choices we made so that we make better choices next time. That's when prayer comes in. They are dialogue between you and God, or the divine, whichever term you're comfortable with using. That's what prayers mean for me personally, and they can sound something like this. Get me more clear. Help me sense what I'm doing here. Increase my sense of self-awareness. Help me understand why I'm making the choices that I made. That awareness or clarity that you receive then becomes intuition. As a result, your intuitive skills then become about the pursuit of self-knowledge, the knowledge of yourself. Now, life isn't about making the perfect decision every time. Instead, every decision leads to effect. Some helpful, some painful, but they all are opportunities for us to learn. The universe doesn't punish or reward us for our choices. It simply responds to the choices we make. For example, if you invest all your money into a risky business and lose it all, it's not wrong. It's just a result of that decisions. If you learn from that mistake and make better financial choices, then the experience helps you grow. Even if we make painful choices, we are not left alone to suffer. Guidance, whether it's from intuitions, mentors, spiritual insight, or life itself, help us navigate consequences and make better choices next time. For example, if you enter a toxic relationship and later realize it was unhealthy, your pain teaches you to set better boundaries. Your inner voice or intuition might have given you warning signals before, but you ignore them. So next time, you recognize the red flags earlier. Now, I need to hit the pause button and clarify a few things here, as this may cause some confusions. When I said your intuition might have given you warning signals before, but you ignore them, I didn't mean that intuition was trying to stop you from making mistakes, and that would be conflicting with what we have been discussing up to this point. Instead, what it means is that intuition was simply giving you information about the situations. It was reading subtle energy cues, your discomfort, the way the person spoke to you, the inconsistencies in their behavior, these are simply data from the field. However, whether you listen to it or not depends on your level of self-awareness. Think of intuition like a dashboard on your car. Your fuel gauge tells you when you're low on gas, just like your intuition gives you insight. But it doesn't force you to pull over. It's still your choice, or free will, as we call it, to act on it. In other words, intuition provides awareness of information. It's not commanding us to either do or don't do something. Many people think of intuition as a mystical force that exists to prevent suffering, as if it's whispered, don't do this, it will be a mistake. This is a misunderstanding of how intuition works. It's not a warning system designed to protect you from every bad experience. If intuition worked that way, we would never make any mistake. But the truth is, mistakes are part of learning and conscious evolutions. Life is about experiencing, learning, and growing, not avoiding hardship. Trying to use intuition to dodge challenges is an ego-driven approach, not a spiritually mature one. If we only engage with intuition when we are afraid, we distort its real purpose. True intuitive awareness requires detachment, the ability to receive intuitive insight without letting personal fears or agendas cloud them. That's why we often receive our clearest intuition hits when we are not emotionally invested in the outcome. So going back to our toxic relationships example earlier, your intuition might sense something off early on, small red flags, but if your self-awareness is low, you may rationalize those feelings away by telling yourself that you were just overthinking the situation and that everything was probably fine. In other words, your fears as a result of past experiences had already distorted your perception of the signal and what it means. Another misconception, as mentioned in the previous section, is that intuition is something separated from ourselves, something apart from any of our other senses. The truth is, intuition is a part of our organic intelligence, just like sight or hearing. We need to stop treating intuition as an external force that steps in only when something bad is about to happen. Intuition is always working, constantly providing information, not just in moments of crisis. Our ability to pick up on the information provided by intuitions depends on our level of self-awareness. The more aware we are of why we make the choices we did, the clearer our intuition becomes. The more we observe our own patterns, the more intuition becomes clear and useful. The more we understand our motivations, fears, and emotional patterns, the more we can trust our intuitive insight. So where does the information that intuition picks up come from? These are patterns of energies or insight. Is this outside of our immediate conscious mind? Intuition is a perceptual system that interacts not only with the data you picked up from your own experience in this reality, but also energetic data from reality beyond our logical thinking ability. The data is always there in the field, but having a clear intuition would then allow us to pick up those energetic patterns easier. Therefore, the more we understand our motives, fears, desires, and biases, the more accurately we can interpret these intuitive insights and differentiate between our own projections and genuine intuitive insights. In other words, intuition is a tool, not the data itself. Intuitive insight itself is not intuition. It simply is energetic patterns or data in the field. But how does self-awareness increase the clarity of our intuitive insights exactly? Before we dive into the relationship between intuition and self-awareness, we need to first understand what self-awareness means As mentioned earlier, one of the misuse of intuition is using it to read others for the purpose of control and manipulations. This is an ego-driven approach. Intuition is not about reading other people. Instead, it's about knowing about you, your motives, your dark side, and your light side. You are the subject of your study, not everybody else. The truth is that you can't help anyone else unless you understand yourself by doing your own inner work, by taking yourself apart and trying to understand it. So what does this journey of inner development look like? Well, to me, it involves your assessment of yourself by asking yourself the following questions and answer them truthfully. How do you talk to yourself? How have your intelligence talk to you? What your fears are? How you control others? What your shadow side is? It's important to acknowledge that the object of this journey of inner development is not about perfection. The truth is that there's no end to this journey. Our inner growth is something that we always have to work at. Instead, the object is to catch yourself faster. Catch is faster when you're about to snap at someone. Catch is faster when you make yourself more inclined to go up and say to someone that you're sorry, that they matter to you. Catch is faster when you know you just said something that is untrue and ask yourself, what did I do that for? Catch is faster when you're about to blame someone and indulge yourself in self-pity. We have to know where our intuition stops and the ego starts. That's the objects of this. We have to work that clearly with ourselves, because before we can be clear with anyone else, we have to be clear with ourselves first. For example, when I'm self-aware enough to catch myself before I enter full self-pity mode, I can stop it and not let myself drown in self-pity. Once I have the courage to own that to myself by acknowledging that I've been choosing to feel sorry for myself, but I'm going to own this now, and I'm doing this by choice, then I have the clarity to spot my wounded child and decide whether I'm going to use the rationale that I've been telling myself to allow my wounded child to go to town with it, or I'm going to stand up to it. This is exactly how we would use our intuitive self, by saying that I know exactly what's going on here, and not letting the subconscious program take over. Now that we understand what self-awareness means, let's dive into the relationship between intuitions and self-awareness. What do they have to do with each other? Well, intuition is often misunderstood as an external force that just happens, like a divine whisper, a sudden flash of insights coming from nowhere. But in reality, intuition is deeply connected to self-knowledge. The clearer you understand yourself, your patterns, your emotions, and motivations, the clearer and more reliable your intuitions becomes. In other words, intuition is a function of self-knowledge. And here's why. The subconscious mind constantly processes informations, emotions, and experiences, even when we are not consciously aware of it. Intuition is not random, although it may appear to be so. In fact, it's the result of deeply ingrained knowledge and pattern recognitions. So let's break this down. Our brains absorb vast amounts of data throughout our entire life. Our experiences, emotions, social interactions, and observations, even when we are not consciously aware of it. Our mind is always processing, sorting, and recognizing patterns in the data it receives. That's why when you meet someone new, you may instantly feel trust or discomfort, even though you can't really explain why. This feeling isn't magic. It's your brain detecting subtle body language, tone of voice, or facial expressions that remind you of past experiences, whether good or bad. Therefore, we can say that intuition isn't guessing, it's drawing on years of stored experience and observations. Your subconscious mind can detect trends and patterns faster than your conscious mind can process them. When a situation feels off, your intuition may be picking up on familiar warning signs based on past experiences. For example, a seasoned firefighter might sense that a building is about to collapse even before seeing clear evidence of it. His intuitions come from years of experience, recognizing subtle environmental cues like temperature, smoke patterns, or cracking sound. Therefore, intuition is not random, it's a result of fast subconscious pattern recognitions. If intuition is based on stored knowledge, then a person with faulty beliefs, unchecked fears, or limited experience may misinterpret intuitive signals. For example, a person who has been cheated on multiple times may always feel like their new partner is unfaithful to them, even if there's no real evidence. Their intuition in this case is actually what we call pattern recognition gone wrong. They're projecting past experiences onto a new situations. That's when self-awareness would come in to help us differentiate between real intuitions and emotional bias. Now I need to hit the pause button again and clarify a few things here. We said earlier that intuition isn't guessing, it's drawing on years of stored experience and observations. But now we're suggesting from the above example that the intuitions the person got in this case is somehow faulty, and that we must try to overcome it with self-awareness. If the nature of intuition is to draw patterns from past experience data, is it even feasible to try to overcome this in the case of bad experiences? Now, in order to answer this question, we need to get to the heart of why intuition is only as good as the data is trained on. Since intuition draws on past experiences to recognize patterns, how can we ensure that we don't just keep repeating the same mistake or misinterpreting situation based on our past pain? Think of intuition as a machine learning system. It recognizes patterns based on what it has previously learned. If the past data is incomplete, biased, or based on trauma, intuition will make faulty predictions in new situations. Now, the good news is that just like a machine learning model, we can update the data it's using. In the example above, the intuition that that person got is not necessarily wrong. Intuition was just doing its job by recognizing past patterns. But if the person consciously reflect and ask, is there actual evidence of dishonesties, or am I reacting to own wounds? They can then override the faulty patterns and adjust their intuitive response. We are not the prisoner of our past patterns. We can retrain our intuition by consciously reevaluating the data it relies on. The role of self-awareness is to separate intuition from emotional triggers. Raw intuition is often mixed with emotional triggers from past experiences. Self-awareness allows us to pause and analyze whether our intuition is accurate or if we are projecting own fears. For example, if you always felt ignored as a child, you might feel that your friends don't value you, even when there's no one who's actually ignoring you. Your intuition might be clouded and distorted by emotional wounds, but through self-awareness, you can learn to distinguish past emotions from present reality. Intuition and emotional triggers feel similar, but they are not the same thing. That's why most of us mistake anxiety, wishful thinking, or fear for intuitions. When lack of self-awareness,
It's hard for us to tell whether an intuitive feeling is a true insight, which means our subconscious reading the energies in the field, or a projection, which means our fears, insecurities, or past traumas influencing our perception. So the better we know ourselves, the easier it is to separate real intuitive insight from emotional noise. So to recap, intuition is an inner intelligence that reflects the clarity of one's self-awareness. Intuition is a natural function of human consciousness that operates organically, like sight or hearing. Cultivating self-awareness does not create intuitions. Rather, it refines our ability to receive and interpret it accurately. Now that we understand what intuition is, what it is not, and its relationship to self-awareness, let's talk about how we should use intuitions. In my case, once I stopped seeing intuition as a mystical guide and started using it as a tool for self-awareness, everything changed. By making my inner developments the focus, my intuition became clearer as I noticed that I get better at observing my reactions to a situation, and I'm able to catch myself quicker. As a result, my intuition became more reliable and less clouded by personal fears. And here's how you can do the same. First of all, use intuition for self-awareness, not predictions. Stop thinking of intuition as your magic 8-ball. It's not. Instead, use it to recognize emotional patterns and unconscious motivators. Think about it. A scientist doesn't predict outcomes randomly. They observe patterns from the data. Intuition works the same way. Stop using intuitions to read others. Use it to read yourself. Many people use intuition to figure out what others are thinking, but real intuition is about self-knowledge. Before assuming anything, ask, am I sensing this energy, or am I projecting my own insecurity? For example, if you feel someone dislikes you, is this intuition or fear or rejection? Pay attention to power dynamics. Intuition is an energy compass. It helps you sense where power is flowing in your life. If someone makes you feel drained or small, intuition is flagging a power imbalance. Think of intuition as a battery indicator. When your energy drains, something is off. Now, I will dive into power dynamics in more details in future videos. If you're interested in this topic, subscribe and stay tuned. And then differentiate between fear and intuition. Fear and intuition feel different. Intuition feels neutral, clear, expansive. Fear feels anxious, heavy, and constricting. So before reacting, ask yourself, am I resisting because this is bad for me or because this is unfamiliar? Trust the subtle signals. Intuition isn't always loud or dramatic. It's often showed up as a quiet nudge. Many people override this with logic or wait for a big size instead of trusting smaller signals. Think of intuition like a radio station. It's always broadcasting, but you have to tune into the right frequency. Let's recap what we have discussed in this video using first principle approach. If you don't know what first principle thinking is, you can read more about it on my website or check out this video. The first one we are going to summarize is intuitions. What it is. Intuition is an inner intelligence that reflects the clarity of your self-awareness. It is a perceptual system that operates organically, like sight or hearing. It interacts with internal data from your own experience, as well as external energetic data from reality beyond our logical thinking ability. Next, let's summarize how it works. Intuition constantly provides information, not just in moments of crisis. It works by picking up subtle energy cues like discomfort, tones of voice, or inconsistencies in behavior. It draws on years of stored experiences and observations, detecting trends and patterns faster than the conscious mind. And finally, why do we care? Well, intuition serves as a tool for self-awareness, clarity, and conscious decision-making, helping us understand ourselves, our emotional patterns, and unconscious motivators. It provides awareness and information, but does not dictate actions. Next, let's summarize self-awareness. What it is. Self-awareness is the pursuit of inner knowledge to know yourself, including your motives, dark side, and light side. It involves knowing how you talk to yourself, how your intelligence talks to you, what your fears are, how you control others, and what your own shadow side is. How does it work? Self-awareness is cultivated through inner work, meaning taking yourself apart and trying to understand it. It involves observing your own patterns, understanding your motivations, fears, and emotional patterns. The goal is to catch yourself faster when you're about to react negatively, blame someone, or indulge in self-pity. Why do we care? Well, self-awareness refines our ability to receive and interpret intuitive insights accurately. It helps differentiate between real intuitions and emotional bias, separating intuitions from emotional triggers. Next key concept is emotional triggers. What it is reaction from past experiences that cloud and distort intuitions. How it does so? Emotional triggers mix with raw intuitions, making it difficult to discern true insights from projection of own fears and insecurities. Why do we care? Recognizing emotional triggers through self-awareness allow us to pause and analyze whether our intuition is accurate or if we are projecting own fears. Next, first principle is pattern recognitions. What it is the brain abilities to detect trend and patterns based on stored knowledge and past experiences. How does it do it? Intuition draws on these recognized patterns to provide insight. And why do we care? Pattern recognitions, when accurate, allows for quick subconscious assessment of situations. However, faulty beliefs or limited experience can lead to misinterpretations, what we call pattern recognition gone wrong. Moving on to power dynamics. What it is the flow of energies in relationships and situations. How is it related to intuitions? Intuition acts as an energy compass, helping us sense where powers is flowing in our life. If someone makes us feel drained or small, intuition is flagging a power imbalance. Why do we care? Paying attention to power dynamics can help us identify and address imbalance in our life. Subconscious mind. What it is, the subconscious mind constantly processes informations, emotions, and experiences, even when we're not consciously aware of it. How is it related to intuitions? Well, it absorbs vast amounts of data throughout our lives, sorting and recognizing patterns in the data it receives. Why do we care? The subconscious mind is the basics for intuitions because it detects trend and patterns faster than the conscious mind. Intuitive insight. What it is energetic patterns or data in the field. It is not intuitions. How is it related to intuitions? Well, intuitive insight is obtained through intuition, which is the innate organic faculties that allow us to pick up energetic patterns easier. Why do we care? Intuitive insight reveals hidden motivations, fears, and unconscious biases, helping us understand why we react the way we do. When used correctly, it differentiates between genuine insight and emotional projections, help us make decisions that are more aligned with our true self, improve our energy awareness to help us detect imbalanced relationships, and connect seemingly unrelated ideas, leading to creative problem solving. Organic intelligence. What it is the natural, innate intelligence that includes intuitions, similar to senses like sight and hearing. How it works? It works constantly, providing informations, and our ability to pick up on this information depends on our level of self-awareness. Why do we care? Well, recognizing intuition as part of our organic intelligence helps us stop treating it as an external force and start using it as a tool for self-awareness. Detachment is the ability to receive intuitive insight without letting personal fears or agenda cloud them. How it works is requires a lack of emotional investment in the outcome, allowing for clearer intuitive hits. Why do we care? Detachment is important because it allows for true intuitive awareness, free from distortions of fears and ego. Projections is the act of projecting past experiences, fears, or insecurities onto a new situation, which can distort intuitive signals. How it happens? It happens when emotional wounds and past traumas influence our perceptions, making it hard to tell whether an intuitive feelings is a true insight or a projection. Why do we care? Well, self-awareness helps us differentiate between real intuitive insight and projections, ensuring that we are not misinterpreting situations based on past pain. Lastly, machine learning we use as an analogies to explain how intuition works. How does it work? Intuitions recognize patterns based on what it has previously learned, similar to a machine learning model. Why do we use these analogies? Well, if the past data is incomplete, biased, or based on trauma, intuition will make faulty predictions in new situations. Understanding these analogies help us realize that we can retrain our intuition by consciously re-evaluating the data it relies on and updating it with new information. Now that we have all the first principle identified, let's look at their relationship to each other. And this would help you mentally map how each of the concepts that we have discussed relate to each other. First, intuition and self-awareness. The clarity of our intuitions reflects the level of our self-awareness. Self-awareness involves understanding our motives, fears, and emotional patterns, which help us interpret intuitive insight more accurately. Intuition serves as a tool for self-awareness, helping us recognize emotional patterns and unconscious motivators. Next, let's review the relationship between intuitions and emotional triggers. Emotional triggers from past experiences can cloud and distort intuition, making it difficult to discern true insight from projections. Self-awareness is essential for separating intuition from emotional triggers, allowing us to analyze whether our intuitions is accurate or if we are projecting old fears. Intuitions and pattern recognitions. Intuitions relies on pattern recognitions, drawing on years of stored experience and observations to detect trend and patterns faster than the conscious mind. However, faulty beliefs or limited experience can lead to misinterpretations and pattern recognition gone wrong. Intuitions and the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind constantly processes information, emotions, and experiences, forming the basics for intuitions. Intuition arises from the subconscious mind ability to detect trend and patterns. Intuitive insight and intuitions. Intuitive insight refers to the energetic patterns or data that intuition picks up from the environment. Intuition is the tool that allows us to access and interpret these energetic patterns. Organic intelligence and intuitions. Intuition is a part of our organic intelligence, operating naturally like sight or hearing. Recognizing intuition as a part of our organic intelligence helps us use it as a tool for self-awareness rather than treating it as an external force. Detachment and intuitions. Detachment is the ability to receive intuitive insight without personal fears or agendas clouding them. It allows for clearer intuitive hits, free from distortions of fears and ego. Projections and intuitions. Projecting past experiences and fears onto new situations can distort intuitive signal. Self-awareness helps us differentiate between real intuitive insights and projections, ensuring that we are not misinterpreting situations based on past pain. Machine learning and intuitions. Machine learning models learn from input data, so the predicted outcome is only as good as the source data used to train the models. Similarly, intuition recognizes patterns based on past learning, and if the data is biased or incomplete, it can lead to faulty interpretations. So just like a machine learning model, we can retrain our intuition by re-evaluating the data it relies on. Power dynamics. Lastly, power dynamics and intuitions. Intuition acts as an energy compass, helping us sense where power is flowing in our life. Paying attention to power dynamics can help us identify and address power imbalance in our life.